One of the biggest business experiments in human history exposed leadership weaknesses that had been hidden inside office walls for years. When offices around the world suddenly closed and millions of employees started working from home, companies expected challenges with technology, communication, and productivity. But something unexpected happened. The biggest challenge wasn't the internet. It wasn't Zoom. It wasn't working from home. It was leadership. Many managers who looked successful inside an office suddenly struggled when their teams went remote because they had unknowingly relied on visibility instead of trust, control instead of communication, and presence instead of performance. In today's video, we'll uncover the major leadership issues remote work revealed, and most importantly, how leaders can overcome these challenges and build stronger teams in the future. Let's begin. First, remote work became the world's biggest leadership experiment. Throughout history, great crises have exposed hidden weaknesses. The sinking of the Titanic exposed weaknesses in maritime safety. The 2008 financial crisis exposed weaknesses in banking systems. The COVID era exposed weaknesses in leadership. For the first time in history, millions of employees worked remotely at the same time. It became the largest workplace experiment ever conducted. And suddenly, leaders lost their most powerful management tool, visibility. For years, many managers relied on seeing people work. Remote work removed that advantage overnight, and that's when the cracks appeared. First issue, leaders confused activity with productivity. One of the biggest leadership issues exposed by remote work was that many managers confused visibility with productivity. For years, some managers measured success by seeing employees sitting at their desks. If someone arrived early, stayed late, and looked busy, they were considered productive. Remote work destroyed that illusion. Suddenly, employees were delivering results without being physically present. Many managers became uncomfortable because they could no longer see work happening. Remote work forced leaders to confront an uncomfortable truth that results matter more than appearances. For example, during the pandemic, many organizations began using employee monitoring software to track mouse movements, screen activity, and keyboard usage. According to reports from workplace analytics companies, the use of employee surveillance tools increased dramatically worldwide. However, many employees reported feeling less trusted and more stressed. Meanwhile, companies that focused on outcomes rather than monitoring often maintained stronger engagement. A well-known example is Microsoft, which emphasized productivity outcomes and collaboration tools rather than excessive surveillance, helping many teams adapt successfully to remote work. How to manage this? Instead of asking, "How many hours did you work?" ask, "What results did we achieve?" Leaders should create clear goals, measurable outcomes, and accountability systems. The future belongs to leaders who measure impact, not attendance. Second issue, poor communication. Many managers thought they communicated well. Remote work proved otherwise. In an office, communication mistakes are often hidden. Employees can walk to a manager's desk. Colleagues can clarify misunderstandings instantly. But remote work removes those safety nets. Suddenly, unclear instructions became expensive mistakes. Instructions became confusing. Goals became unclear. Teams became disconnected. When communication fails remotely, productivity suffers quickly. For example, early in the remote work transition, many companies experienced Zoom overload because leaders replaced clear communication with endless meetings. In contrast, organizations like GitLab had already built detailed documentation systems and remote communication practices. Because expectations were documented and accessible, teams could work efficiently across different countries and time zones. How to manage this? They followed a simple rule. Communicate important information 3 times, first verbally, second in writing, third through follow-up. Repetition creates clarity. Third issue, micromanagement. Another issue that remote work exposed was micromanagement. Some managers attempted to recreate the office environment virtually. They wanted updates every hour. They scheduled meeting after meeting. They checked every task repeatedly. Employees became exhausted. Instead of empowering people, leaders became bottlenecks. Micromanagement creates several problems: reduced creativity, lower confidence, slower decision-making, employee frustration, increased turnover. The more managers tried to control everything, the less effective their teams became. For example, Management experts frequently reference the success of organizations that empowered teams rather than controlling every activity. Teams inside Netflix became famous for operating under a culture of responsibility and freedom. The company's philosophy focuses heavily on trusting talented employees to make decisions rather than requiring excessive supervision. This approach became even more valuable during remote work. Remote work proves something important. People don't need constant supervision to perform well. They need clear expectations and support. How to manage this? Leaders should set clear objectives, establish deadlines, define accountability, and allow autonomy. Trust people to do their jobs. Guide them when needed. Control the outcome, not every step. As we're talking about leadership, communication, decision-making, and business growth, there's something interesting I came across the Leader's Toolkit. Sometimes the real challenge is inspiring your team, handling tough conversations, making decisions that actually stick, staying focused under pressure. And it didn't stop at the ebook. You also get a checklist to keep you focused, a resource cheat sheet for quick solutions, and a mind map that simplifies everything into one glance. Simple, practical, and powerful. I've added the link in the description below so you can easily explore it after this video. Fourth issue, inability to build culture. Many leaders believe company culture existed because people worked in the same building. Remote work challenged that assumption. When offices closed, some company cultures disappeared almost instantly because they were built around physical spaces instead of shared values. True culture isn't free coffee. It isn't office games or fancy meeting rooms. True culture is shared values and behaviors. When employees work remotely, those values become the glue holding teams together. For example, companies with strong values and mission-driven cultures often maintained employee engagement despite being fully remote. Employees remained connected because they understood the organization's purpose. Meanwhile, organizations that relied heavily on office perks struggled to maintain team unity. How to manage this? Leaders should reinforce company values regularly, celebrate achievements publicly, encourage collaboration, and create meaningful team interactions. People stay connected to purpose, not office furniture. Fifth issue, failure to support employee well-being. Remote work blurred the line between personal life and professional life. Many employees experienced stress, burnout, isolation, anxiety, and longer working hours. Unfortunately, some leaders failed to recognize these challenges. They focused only on productivity metrics. But effective leadership requires understanding people, not just performance. For example, during remote work transitions, several organizations introduced mental health support programs, wellness initiatives, and flexible schedules. LinkedIn became widely known for initiatives such as company-wide wellness days and encouraging employees to disconnect and recharge. Companies that prioritize employee well-being often saw stronger retention and engagement. Employees felt valued as people rather than resources. Remote work taught leaders an important lesson. Human beings are not productivity machines. Leadership must include empathy. How to manage this? Leaders should schedule regular check-ins, encourage time off, watch for burnout signs, promote mental wellness, and respect personal boundaries. Sixth issue, lack of adaptability. Perhaps the greatest leadership challenge exposed by remote work was adaptability. Some leaders waited for things to return to normal. Others adjusted quickly. Adaptive leaders experimented. They learned new technologies. They changed processes. They listened to employees. They embraced uncertainty. Rigid leaders struggled because they relied on old methods designed for a different environment. For example, many digital-first organizations adapted rapidly because leaders were willing to rethink traditional workflows. Rather than forcing old systems into new conditions, they redesigned how work was performed. The result? Faster adaptation and better outcomes. Leadership today requires flexibility. The workplace changes too quickly for rigid thinking. How to manage this? Develop a mindset of continuous learning. Encourage experimentation. Accept that not every solution will work perfectly. How to be the leader? Remote work demands. All right, let's shift gears, because knowing the problem is only half the job. Let's talk about solutions. Here's what the best remote leaders do differently. 1. They over-communicate with intention, more clarity. Document decisions. Use tools like Notion, Confluence, or Loom to create asynchronous clarity. Great remote leaders communicate like journalists. Who, what, when, why, how, every time. 2. They build culture deliberately. In-office culture happens by accident. Remote culture must be built on purpose. Schedule virtual coffees, create non-work channels. At Zapier, a fully remote company valued at over $5 billion, they have dedicated donut bot meetups that randomly pair employees across departments just to talk. 3. They trust first, verify with systems. Hire people you trust, give them clear outcomes, and build lightweight check-in systems. Weekly stand-ups, shared dashboards, progress docs that create visibility without surveillance. 4. They invest in their people's growth. Remote workers who feel stagnant leave. The best leaders build learning into the culture. Course reimbursements, internal knowledge sharing. 5. They lead themselves. First, remote work requires self-discipline from leaders too. Show up on time to your calls, answer messages in reasonable windows, model the behavior you want. If your team sees you scattered and reactive, they'll follow. Even as many organizations return to offices or adopt hybrid models, the lessons remain relevant. As the future of work continues to evolve, the leaders who embrace these lessons will build stronger teams, healthier workplaces, and more successful organizations. Because in the end, remote work didn't create leadership issues. It simply exposed the ones that were already there. And that may be the most valuable lesson of all. The office was never the place where leadership happened. Leadership happens in your decisions. If you found this video valuable, share it with someone who wants to become a better leader, and let us know in the comments. What leadership issue did remote work reveal in your workplace? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.